failure is something that we should not be afraid of. And it's not necessarily a failure because no matter what step in the process it is, we're learning from it. When we finish something, we have a really structured debrief process of what did we learn? What is it going to take to kind of take this further? It's the what, the so what, the now what.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
If you were at all curious about innovation and how innovation works at GS1 US, this is the perfect episode for y'all to listen to. Reid and I just had a conversation with Bob Czechowicz and Nick Latwis from the GS1 US Innovation Team, where they talk about the innovation process, how to understand what may work, what may not work, how to make sure that the problems that you're trying to solve stay front and center when you're thinking about innovation for your business. And then they get really detailed on what they are both looking to learn in the next year. So please enjoy.
Hey, Bob and Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Before we jump in, we have both of you here, but if we can give a little background on yourselves and what you do at GS1 and where you kind of your backgrounds came from. So Bob, let's start with you first.
So I've been here with GS1 US over 6 years now, currently the Senior Director of Innovation at the organization. And the easiest way to describe what my team and I do is we get a chance to look around the corner, look to where the market's going, research emerging trends, working to understand how standards can work with emerging technology and vice versa. And prior to GS1 US, I've always had roles that involved innovation in some way, be it sales operations, IT, sales, et cetera. But this is the first time I actually have innovation in my job title.
Awesome. Nick, what about you?
Yeah. Hey, so I've been here almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in March as a director of innovation at GS1 US. A lot of what Bob said, research, doing the pilots, which are, we could get into that later, experiments, testing hypotheses around new and emerging technologies. Before here, I did a lot of the same research stuff. It was a lot of research. Product management was one of my first jobs outside of college. And then I did at Carnegie Mellon, I took a dual master's in engineering and business. So it was a lot of how do you build technology forward startups? And so that's kind of really helped with having that innovative mindset and helping us kind of not only work with, but understand like startups and how they think and what they go through.
Between Nick and myself, we have 2 master's degrees, which is great.
Yes, that is a factual statement, Bob. Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of starting with the end in mind here, what are you all seeing from an emerging technology perspective that you think will really transform the supply chain in the next 3 to 5 years? Bob, I'll start with you.
Yeah, 3 to 5 seems like it's far away, but it's gonna be here really, really soon. So I think one thing that's already started, but I think it's gonna take more shape over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. Experiential retail is something that we've been kind of keeping an eye on. And as consumers, we've probably been impacted by it already. How are retailers creating those moments, be them interactive, emotional, memorable? So it's not just shopping. They're trying to figure out how to get people to want to come back, buy more, and then share that experience with others. So experiential retail is one of them. Another one that's kind of nearer term, 3 to 5 years is a good timeline, is personalized medicine. Another thing we've been hearing about at different events that we go to and through talking to our partners on the healthcare team, what's the right treatment for this person at this moment, right? As opposed to just take this and, it'll help you out. So I think those are 3 to 5 years is a good time frame. There's some that are a little further out, which I know Nick loves to talk about. Nick, do you want to hit on some of the ones that are maybe beyond 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. And one thing I like to keep in mind when talking about timelines and everything, I forget who said it, but there's the quote that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So to Bob's point, everything we're talking about, someone is doing it somewhere, but 3 to 5 years is that mass adoption. You have the Gaussian curve of early adopters, late majority, all that stuff. So there are pockets here and there. So some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, maybe it's more than 3 to 5 for mass adoption, but some companies are already seeing things from it today. So I'll start with one that I like a lot. It's quantum computing. So the idea that we are able to create this new type of computer, this new type of computation by leveraging the peculiar behaviors of subatomic particles to exponentially increase the amount of compute a computer can do, right? And so once you can do that, you can do calculations beyond what a normal computer could do today. What the best supercomputer would take years, it could take a quantum computer seconds to do that same calculation. So there's a lot of implications, especially if we look at simulations and digital twins running very complex supply chain optimization problems and simulating digital, like real world environments with an even greater level of detail than they are today. So quantum is one. And, depending on who you ask, there are quantum computers that exist today that they're really being used for research. They haven't quite gotten to the mainstream yet. That's probably 5+ years. And then the other one that I like to think about and that I started talking about when I started working here, and every year the looks have been less and less weird that I've been getting, and that is space infrastructure, space supply chain. From, what companies are doing, sending reusable rockets into orbit, microsatellites, or even nanosatellites that startups are able to put things into space now. What was once the purview of governments is now something a startup out of Silicon Valley can kind of dabble into. So you have space infrastructure there, whether that's putting manufacturing in space, building things in zero gravity, like types of medicines and certain chemistries that would collapse under gravity in a gravity well, you can do it in space, or even just satellites, GPS, better traceability for supply chains. To Google, I think Google talked about their Suncatcher project, which is putting AI data centers into space. So you're not using up a bunch of resources here. The void of space is kind of doing the cooling for them. So there's a lot of stuff happening in that sphere as well. So those are the two: quantum computer and, as I call it, space infrastructure.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm glad that you guys brought up kind of a macro level point of view with technology and trends, but also specificity into the medicine and retail space and things that we're seeing. I'd like to understand if you have any advice or how you all go about doing it, but it's cutting through the noise and filtering, because everything out there is AI. Bob, I know you and I saw each other in the office the other day, and I was reminiscing about 2020 and Meta and the virtual world and all these things that everyone was investing in at that time. And it didn't, evolve to anything. Right now, it hasn't, right? There's been some dabbling, but it's been a pause and a shift. So how do you all deal with all the different tools and predictions and just the flooding of the shiny objects that are out there to know where to spend some time? Or if you have any advice for our listeners.
Yeah, this is something that Nick and I and the whole innovation team think and talk a lot about. It's definitely a challenge, and we approach it with like push and pull strategy of trying to make sure that we're setting ourselves up in a way to get information pushed to us. And then as far as pulling, it's where can you get the information from in a reliable way? And you can't really just rely on one of those things to stay informed. You really need both. On the push side, think of it like a radar system. You're gonna set things up in a way to look for signals, alerts, summaries, etc. I'd say it's like a set it and forget it kind of mindset, but you really can't forget it. You really need to set it and then keep tweaking it and making sure that you're getting what you need. So the push side is just what newsletters are you subscribing to? Who are you following on different social media channels? What sort of things are you looking at on a regular basis? What shows are you going to from a conference kind of standpoint to make sure that if you do nothing, information is going to come your way. So do some work up front to get stuff getting pushed to you. And Nick, do you want to talk about the pool aspect?
Yeah. So Bob's talking about things getting sent to you. This is more hunting for things, looking for things. I call it trend spotting a little bit. It's curiosity without judgment, just going out and seeing what's new, what's trending, and then seeing more and more of what's out there and understanding the landscape as you start to get all these little things from different news sites, articles, whatever everyone is doing. And then how do you keep in the back of your mind the problem, the audience, the persona, whatever it is that is kind of driving this. So having that intentionality behind there. So you kind of look first without judgment, but then as you're looking at everything, you start to filter it through that lens of, is this relevant to us? Is this relevant to our customers? How do we add that perspective onto what we're out there hunting, basically?
And so that you're not just hunting the bright, shiny object, right? So there's some relevance there. But then also, we may not know what needs to be answered yet. So keeping that, I guess, that's y'all's job, is keeping that in your brain. And when it's time, I remember that. There's so much like data everywhere, internal, external. How do you figure out what truly matters when you start thinking about an investment you're going to make or a trend you want to double down on? Like, what should you start thinking about so that if you start down that path, you cut bait if it's not for you, but then not even maybe starting? How do you flesh that out? You
had talked about the lens, right? Looking through the lens and ensuring that you're kind of grounded in the aspect to make sure that you're not just off looking at cool stuff. And it's for a reason. To me, that's where data comes into play, right? So you're treating the data, the selection of data, like filtering a signal through the lens of that business relevance. And it all comes down to, Liz, to your point, what problem are we actually trying to solve, right? So it's not just a hammer in search of a nail. You kind of know what nails are out there that need to be hit. Sometimes, there are just hammers out there that are fun to kind of keep an eye on and then try to figure out what it can solve. But that analogy comes up a lot in the work that we do. And I think from a data standpoint, is just ensuring that you're looking at data to help you validate things and to help guide you and not distract you, because there's no lack of data that's out there. It's tied into the notion of filtering through the noise.
Yeah, there's a dichotomy there, because sometimes, I think, Liz, you said it before, sometimes you see a data point and you don't know if it's relevant or not, or you see something and you're not sure if it's a trend, right? You take any two dots you can draw a line to connect them, but you really want to get that critical mass of, I'm not just seeing one person talk about this one thing on a one-off project. I'm seeing some kind of, if not consensus, quorum, whatever word you want to use, this critical mass of data points about a topic, but also data points that are, one, practical, and two, you are kind of discerning of who it's coming from, right? So you look at, I'm just going to say drone delivery, for example, and you look at that and you see that, you have these companies that are talking about all the things they're doing to help deliver drones, but then you're also seeing the end users, the hospitals getting blood deliveries by drone, the rural areas getting their medicine by drone, them talking about it. And these sources here that, they're not trying to sell you the product. They are the ones benefiting from it. So you can see that it's practical, beneficial, valuable out in the real world. And data sources like those are kind of the ones you want to focus on because they really support the problem, the job to be done. In contrast to, I think Reid mentioned it before, was the metaverse, right? And it was a lot of people kind of talking about it, but no end person was like, yes, this has changed my life because of this technology. It's the people making it, selling it, but being a little discerning in the data and the trends in that perspective.
It's sort of understanding what's a leading indicator as opposed to a lagging metric, something that's kind of more concrete. So Nick, your example there, if customer behavior, just hearing about something changing, startup activity in an ecosystem, venture funding, like those are like leading indicators from a data standpoint. And then when that can get synced up with those lagging indicators, ROI, cost improvements, efficiency gains, et cetera, that's where it all kind of comes together. And that's where, not all data is created equally, but those two things pointing in the same direction is really where it gets interesting.
We have something exciting to share with you, a special podcast discount for our favorite event of the year.
GS1 Connect.
That's right, our annual supply chain focused conference, and this year it's in Las Vegas 2026.
I cannot wait. Reid, how many GS1 Connects have you been to?
I think it's been 7. This year will be 8.
That's awesome. I have been going to Connect before it was called Connect. So I very much love meeting all of our attendees every single year who bring so many great examples from grocery, food service, retail, and healthcare about how they solve supply chain visibility challenges. And in 2026, Las Vegas gives us the perfect excuse for a few puns about how GS1 standards can help you make bold moves that lead to big wins.
Oh, I see where you're going. GS1 Connect is your chance to deal yourself a winning hand in operations with the power of GS1 standards.
Wait, GS1 Connect is also the perfect place to hit the jackpot on connections from the exhibitor floor to the networking tables and forge high-value relationships that pay dividends long after the bright lights fade.
Learning strategies worth betting on for sure, Liz. Hear from trailblazers across industries and walk away with bold insights that help you turn risk into reward.
Okay, I think that's enough puns for the day. Maybe one more. If your supply chain feels like a roll of the dice, GS1 Connect in Las Vegas is your sure bet for success. So mark your calendars for June 9th through 11th and join us at GS1 Connect. It's time to take your supply chain game to the next level. And this year we have great news for anyone ready to plan to attend.
That's right, Liz. We do have an early bird registration is officially open. If you register by March 31st, you can save 10% on your conference pass. Just head to connect.gs1us.org to secure your spot and take advantage of the early bird rate. Whether it's your first time to GS1 Connect or your 12th, like Liz, or more, there's always something new to learn and new people to meet.
Again, the website is connect.gs1.org. Don't forget, register by March 31st to get that 10% early bird savings. See you there.
I'd like to pivot here just a little bit. Nick, you talked about it earlier when you did your introductions about, conducting pilots. And I'm a bit familiar with how you all go about this, but I find it very intriguing and very helpful. And I think that our listeners would too. So I was hoping you can kind of take us through how you go about pilots, how you break down innovation, starting with a hypothesis, looking at metrics, what are your guardrails? How do you determine a go, no go, move forward, or, hey, we just need to stop this, right? Like fail fast type of scenarios. And kind of what separates it from just an experiment, right? Maybe if you can shed a little light on that.
Yeah. The first thing we always start with is an idea. We have a whole library full of ideas that we assess, we look at, we determine, we prioritize them based on what's possible, how ready is the market, things like that. Starts with an idea, and we really tie it in the very first stage, what we call an opportunity activation, into the problem, the unmet need, or as some people say, the job to be done, right? What is the thing here that is driving the need for change? A thing that they teach a lot of startups is that people always want a painkiller instead of a vitamin. So if you can solve a pain that people are having, instead of just making something that's already working better, they're going to be way more likely to adopt it. So that's why you want to be very problem focused there, of saying this is a clearly defined problem. We go on the next stage of validating we think is a problem, the people sitting in this office here. So we go out, we make sure it actually is a problem out in the real world, talking to people, making sure this is something they want to have solved. And then from there is when we start to draft the pilot and put the metrics in place. And the goal there is an MVP, because we love acronyms. It's a minimum viable product or minimum viable pilot, if we want to use the same P letter. So the idea is, what's the smallest metric that we can do that will still prove the hypothesis is true or not? And it's really all about doing something that, one, is testable in a way that is not going to break the bank or explode or get you big or anything, and manage scope creep. So we're testing the exact thing we want to test. So it's not testing 10 things and then when it's over and you deliver value, you're like, well, which of the 10 things actually delivered the value? What was the source of it? So it's making it constrained like that. And to your question of what makes it a pilot, not an experiment, working with academia, and we've worked with academic institutions in the past, both for pilot activity and just general research and stuff. It's the practical application and the partnerships that are a real core piece of it, where we're getting real world data, real world partners to put this out where actual users and people are going to be using it. It's not as theoretical potentially as an experiment in a nice lab setting. It's a far stronger pilot when we're testing it using real people who are the actual going to be the end users. And then based on that, we look at, did it work? Did it meet the metrics and not meet the metrics? And if Happy Path it did, we also have to consider the market readiness. We look at it, what's everything that went into making this happen? Who are the partners? Are they early adopters? Are they majority? Are they early majority, late majority? Is this something that can actually be adopted widespread with everyone and we should keep going and keep commercializing it? Or is this something where it's still a couple years out and there's pieces of this that are not that at scale, and so we need to hold on to it and keep it on the back burner until it can go somewhere? Or third option, is it just not worth it and should we just kill it, for lack of a better word?
When you mentioned, is the market ready for it? I often think of Google Glass. I forget the year, but it was way prior to 2020. And it was the coolest product launch. They dropped somebody from an airplane and landed in some building, something, or I think it was in Vegas, but it was super cool and really great product. But they didn't have edge computing. They didn't have 5G. They didn't have a lot of things for the market. And so then it went with a dud. Like it just was like, wow, this is so cool. And then it was like, it really doesn't work out here. And it went off the shelves. But now in 2025, we see it back. And you see Ray-Bans and Meta and all these companies that are coming out with smart glasses, because we have all those things now to kind of bring it together.
Hitting back on something you mentioned in your question around the notion of failing fast, right? And Nick had talked about within pilots, sometimes you do need to just stop it and move on to something else. That was something deliberate that we as a team did, and we're not unique. I mean, other innovation teams do this as well, but there was a cultural element there of viewing stopping something as a responsible step of the process as opposed to a failure. And we developed a point system just to track our upper funnel activities, just to kind of make sure we're balanced across different areas of the incubation process that Nick highlighted there. Ensure that treating it like a funnel, like in order to deliver this many of this, you need to have this many ideas. It's math at some point, right? So when we implemented actually counting in a positive way, stop kills, right? We stop this, and that's going to actually earn points from a scoring system. It was kind of interesting to see the reaction to that. But we did that for that reason that you highlighted there, that failure is something that we should not be afraid of. And it's not necessarily a failure because no matter what step in the process it is, we're learning from it. These pilots are not mini deployments, as you heard sort of Nick talk about there. We're going into them to learn something, which then all brings it back all the way to the end of when we finish something. We have a really structured debrief process of what did we learn? What is it going to take to kind of take this further? It's the what, the so what, the now what of every initiative that we do. And that comes whether we finish it or not. If we stop it, we do the what, the so what, and the now what as well.
I love that. It's really true because it's, okay, we proved it. How do we operationalize it? Or is there a guide path to operationalizing it? Is the ROI there? There's a lot that goes into this to take it from a pilot to operational to next steps.
One of the things I think, Nick, you talked about was the partnerships of the pilots, but I'm also assuming you all have either partnerships or conversations or just a bunch of Google searches around startups and accelerators. Like, how do you find that kind of, whether it be partner or information provider, that you can trust and talk to as that information pull, going back to a couple questions ago, pull and push?
Yeah, one thing that we find useful is just putting boots on the ground and going to conferences, going to events, being where the startups are, where the technology is being discussed, and seeing who is consistently at these events. There are a couple emerging technologies events we go to every year, and seeing who's there year after year, who's new, who's reliable, and keeps going back to things or keeps sponsoring things that we are finding value from, we are finding interesting, is one way to make those connections and get that information of who to partner with, what accelerators we might want to deal with, and looking at their portfolio of companies to see, these are ones we like, these are ones we don't like. Maybe this is one we've even worked with on a pilot. They were a great partner, and they're part of an incubator that has a lot of other partners in a similar portfolio. And so it can kind of go different ways, but as I was saying, boots on the ground, like being there and seeing what people are actually doing and talking about, and having the staying power to keep doing that year over year.
Yeah, and we've worked with several different accelerator networks over the last couple of years, some that we're still working with right now, that hit on industries and tech areas that align with the work that we do, which obviously aligns with our organization's strategic priorities. But one cool thing that's come out of that, and Reid, I know you'll like this based on the work we did in the past with that from Startup Lab, we've done some reverse pitches. So everybody probably can be familiar with a startup pitching what they do out to an investor community or out to, trying to win a contest or whatever it might be. We've had a chance to flip that around with some of these accelerator networks that we work with. And we've had a chance to pitch what we do and pitch the priorities that we have, the challenges that we have, and then letting startups then ask us questions and then come to us That's something, I'm not sure how new it is, but it's something that we've seen kind of pop up recently with a couple of these organizations that we work with. And it's been really fascinating to think about the types of responses we get from those pitches and the questions that we get. It's made us rethink how we pitch and how, like, our pitch deck, so to speak, and what we think is going to resonate. But ultimately what it's leading to, it's enabling promising startups to find us as much as we want to find them.
Yeah, that's really cool, because we all come at life from different perspectives and where our goals and focuses are, but it could be the same exact environment with these different perspectives. And now that you lay it out there, they could go away and think about it, and all of a sudden they reappear in 2 months or 2 years, and they're like, hey, we've been working on this and we've been talking to more people. So you're just expanding your network and your brain capacity as well. It's almost like a soft hackathon, throwing it out there. Are there any questions as leaders that we could be asking to separate meaningful innovation from hype? So when we have startups or even large enterprises that are pitching new ideas, new ways, right? Like quantum computing, generative AI, these have been around for a long time. But when are they really going to hit? When are they not going to hit? Should I be investing? Should I not be investing? These are the types of conversations we were having. So I didn't know if you had any practical advice or questions that you all use to separate meaningful things to go after versus it's probably just hype.
Yeah, a lot of this is built into our process. Just when we go through it, right? These questions kind of organically come up. Very specifically, to answer the question, if I try to boil it down to the basics, it's what problem are we actually trying to solve, right? How would we measure success if we did this? What would break if we didn't do this? It's always interesting to think about a question and think about the inverse question of that same thing. To Nick's point about MVP, what's the smallest version of this that we can test? I love one around basic truths. What are the basic truths? Like, what do we know about this? Which then uncovers what you don't know about this. And then back to the stop kill portion, what would make us stop this? I think those are 4 or 5 just really simple questions that you could use leading up to an effort or coming out of an effort or within an effort, right? If you're reflecting on it, if you're in the midst of it, or if you're kind of planning it out, that I think make a ton of sense.
Yeah, what is the job to be done, right? What is the unmet need? And that answer really will help you figure it out. Not just a thing I need today, but a thing I might need in 5 years, and being able to imagine that, but still grounded in some aspect of reality.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And we're coming up on time. So I'm going to ask you each the same question. Right now, whether it be in your personal life or your work life, what is your favorite technology that you're using right now?
I did not want to say AI because everyone keeps saying that. So I'm going to say one, wearables, because of what they can do today is very interesting in and of itself. And it ties back to the personalized medicine Bob was talking about, because the idea of getting, not just steps, but blood pressure, maybe blood sugar levels, all these different insights into a person's health in real time that they get kind of throughout their day without having to go to the hospital for tests or anything is very powerful and can help further personalize medicine and medical treatment and things like that. But it's also the idea of the future state of wearables as a device ecosystem, right? Whether it's, your phone talking to your watch, getting a display on your smart glasses, maybe even interfacing with your headphones. So all of that working together. And then, yes, you can put AI in there too, because all these companies are thinking as voice gets better, these wearables might be an easier interface for people to use these AI agents in their lives as just like part of that interconnected ecosystem that you have. It's like what's useful today, but also the potential for tomorrow.
So my husband's type 1 diabetic, and having the wearable of his pump with his watch, with his phone. And then I love the idea of AI with the human interaction of, hey, your blood sugar is high or low. Would you like to give yourself or not give yourself some insulin? I mean, it is life altering, and that's where we are today. So even imagining where we could go tomorrow with just that as an example and everything else is really cool.
Exactly.
Okay, Bob, you're up.
Well, my answer is going to seem really bad now after just that really powerful example you just shared. And I'm going to talk about AI. Sorry, Nick, but I'm really intrigued is probably the nice way to say it, but I'll say wasting a lot of personal time with Sora. OpenAI's video
videos.
generation. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to make quick videos. But I think what's interesting about it is not like the end result is really fascinating, but I think it's interesting that you got this tool now that you don't need any expertise at all in this. And just from typing in a quick prompt, you get a really professional looking 10-second to 15-second output. What's good about it is it's not perfect. It does make mistakes, kind of making you kind of approach it a little bit differently. I think if it was perfect, it'd be really, really scary. So I'm really intrigued about that. And I got a lot of friends and other folks jumping on it, and we're having fun with that. So that's, I guess, personal, although there's some work elements to it, I guess. But sticking to the video side of it, thinking about from a professional standpoint, I'm fascinated by agentic advertising. I don't know how familiar or if you've heard about this at all. It's coming up in some different events I've been at. But if you think about sort of the browser cookie kind of model where you get served up relevant ads based on your online behavior, what you're searching for, this agentic advertising model really takes that to a completely new level of the ads you are going to see are personalized to you, and not just like, hey, you're car shopping, here's a car ad. It's literally changing the headlines, the imagery, the video based on you and contextual things that are kind of going on around the world that you're in at that given time. Fascinating. It's like changing the story.
It's going to be like Tom Cruise in Minority Report when you walk into the mall and it's like, hey, Bob, looking for a vacation with the family? And, you know, the girls would love this.
And it's happening now. I mean, there's a lot of companies that are out there doing it. And once again, it's not perfect, but it's something that's there. And it's just really interesting to think about, back to Nick's point about AI. I love thinking about how AI is not only changing the vehicles and the tools and the things that we're using today, but what's the next thing? Like, how is it going to just disrupt it completely, right? We've been scratching the surface a little bit, but it's fascinating to think about what's going to come next.
Yeah, it is. And it's moving fast. All right. Last question. Nick, we'll start with you. What is something new you hope to learn in the near future?
I think part of what we do and when we're researching and when we're trying to come up with new ideas, right? It's creativity, it's inspiration, it's design thinking. And one thing, it's not a new practice, but I think it's something I want to dive into more is the idea of, it's called biomimicry in design. So it's the idea of looking at nature and taking nature as inspiration for how you might design new types of products and materials, but even processes and things like that. I'll give you like two quick examples. Velcro, the guy who invented Velcro, he was walking his dog in the forest and these little like burrs, these like the spiky things on flowers kept getting stuck on the dog's fur. He opened one, he pulled it apart, found like the little hooks, and that's how he came up with Velcro, right? Nature inspiring actual product design. And when I was looking into this, there was one that I saw, it was slime mold for urban planning. So these scientists in Japan, they put, I think it was like oat flakes or something like that on a piece of paper where the major cities were around Japan. And they had slime mold grow and create connections between it to feed. And the like connections that it made, the paths that the slime mold grew in were like potentially layout blueprints for like a high speed rail network. So it's using the natural world. It's like seeing what's in the natural world to inspire what's in the human made world. So I think with a lot of the AI synthetic stuff going on, also just looking back to what's happening in the natural world as inspiration to help foster more creativity. I think, especially because one of the things with AI is it doesn't have that embodied state that humans do. So it can't really interact with the physical world the way we do. So that might be a way to get inspiration beyond what it is capable of helping with.
That's awesome. Those are great examples. Bob, what about you?
I've been really drawn to this idea of how humans and AI can co-innovate and trying to make it personal for myself and for the team. Not just using AI as a tool that you kind of dabble in here and there, but having it truly be a creative partner. I think the next wave of breakthroughs for
your own Jarvis.
For your own Jarvis, but also I'm intrigued at a team-based Jarvis, right? So we've all been using it sort of individually, helping us increase our individual productivity. But I'm super excited to think about how leveraging AI and having it be a whole nother team member, not just something we kind of dabble with here and there, but whether that's common agents, right? Whether it's something that we all kind of use. And when you fill out your team hierarchy, right, it's going to have all the people there, and it's going to have another box for the AI agent. I think it's here. I think we're ready to kind of jump in and figure that out.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, gentlemen, it was a thrill to have you both. We always learn so much, and we appreciate that, one, you're a part of the GS1 US team and the work that you do, and for spending a little time with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.